I was intrigued by your buyer's cooperative terminology. Like, what can you tell me a little bit about what that actually is or was?
It still exists.
Okay,
It's kind of small compared to the height of the AIDS crisis,
but
but
what?
it
Tell
still
me
exists.
what? Tell me what is it?
We're not covered under the law. We go and get the cheapest pot we can for people. See, there's nothing wrong with being on assistance, public assistance. AIDS patients are on public
I don't want
assistance.
to take the conversation in another direction. I was just making a commentary
Yeah.
at just my initial reaction. Like, so you had a great, a great presentation. And then I was like, well, did he just say welfare queen? I mean, that's just what I heard.
No.
And I just want to make sure that we're utilizing the best and most comprehensive language in describing the concepts that we're talking about here.
Right.
So we don't have to get into. I don't think anything of that concept in terms of what your feelings are about it. So please, let's just stick to
I'm
the
just saying
questions
that
about
our
the buyer's
people, our
comment.
people are mostly AIDS patients,
Okay.
and that's where AIDS patients are.
Okay. So, and that's in the buyer cooperative. So can you talk to me also about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission? What do you propose that Truth and Reconciliation Commission do?
I think that you could look at what they had in South Africa after the end of apartheid, and you guys are very good at drafting laws. You could come up with something that would work, that could review this.
Can I comment on that?
Please.
Yes, in South Africa, they had people who suffered the most under apartheid get people like thrown in jail for so-called, political crimes, which are really crimes of resistance, and they got to confront the jailers. They got to confront people who made the laws about apartheid and all of that. The cops had arrested them. Even some of the agents provocateurs that infiltrated the movement, all the victims of these and all the people that suffered the most under apartheid got to confront them, and they found out that it was it's a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It's a way of restoring, people who go through these heavy-duty oppressive things have all kinds of mental conditions and everything, and this kind of helps purges them of it, because in the sense that it's a nonviolent way of reversing the unequal power relationship they have between them.
Right.
And it's also healing for the people who actually committed these crimes. And we also feel like the drug war is a crime against humanity. It's constantly, in this panel alone, talks about the unequal enforcement of it, and the whole Michelle Alexander paradigm, in which the drug war is has a continuity from slavery to Jim Crow to the mass incarceration of now. I mean, whether it's consciously engineered to be like that or not, there needs to be some kind of restorative justice. And part of that is to making sure that the people who suffered the most from the drug war get priorities in licensing, maybe even discounts, maybe even given free even business loans. There's all kinds of things you can do. And they did studies of the reparations towards Japanese Americans who were incarcerated or put in concentration camps in the U.S. during World War II. And they found, it's ultimately up to the people who suffered the most to decide how they want those reparations to be dealt with. But they can be given in like college tuitions, for kids, or for their children, or even if the people suffered want to go back to college. It could be housing, free rent. I don't know.
Can I just respond to that? Because even though the bill doesn't specifically call for the term truth and reconciliation, it actually does require investments into the communities that were disenfranchised as a result of the war on drugs and the mass incarceration, so that people will have opportunities to go to school, to get new housing, to have access to getting a job, to be the person that's in business as a result of the legalization. So to the extent that it is going to invest in those people who lost the most, it's not requiring the conversation that restorative justice would call for. And so maybe that is something we can talk about
Okay.
well into the future. But thanks for bringing that
Yeah,
up.
it's also mental health issues because people who are heavily duly oppressed have all kinds of things going on, and this kind of reverses that. Like I said, it's a way of them
it's quite
reclaiming the
effective.
humanity that was stolen from them from an oppressive system.
It's quite effective. There's a racial equity roundtable that I belong to in Buffalo, and it's made up of a multitude of folks, including corporate business people. And we do healing circles where you literally have to talk these things out in order to restore real justice. So yes, I think that's something that could be added. And
Do you smoke
maybe-
pot in these healing circles?
No.
That's asking
no,
a lot.
We can't
Come
do
on.
that. It's not legal.
Okay. You know, that healed me.
Well, Linda, just remember, there's twice as much crystal meth in the world as there is opiates. And ibogaine is also the only thing that works for crystal meth. It expresses a growth factor that regenerates dopamine neurons. It turns out to be good for Parkinson's disease. So I'd like the Substance Abuse Committee to look at it, really. Thank you.
Can I make one last statement about cannabis? Historically, when cannabis was most widely used in the 1920s and the 1960s, is when black and white people got along the best. The 20s created jazz, a synthesis of African and blues music. Whites got rock and roll, and everybody was partying, and they came down on cannabis because the right wing, the Anslingers and DuPonts and all of that, didn't want us mixing and being part of everything. So I urge weed.
In the 60s, we had a little something called the Civil Rights Movement.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe pot helped fueled a lot of the positive things like that. And I'm a historian, so I know.
Thank you.